policy on drug prices, we're delivering the largest prescription drug price cuts in the history of our country by far, with price differences of 400, 500, and even 600%. And the headline in most of the papers this morning was the largest drug price decrease in 65 years.
President Trump touting the success of prescription drug price drops over the last 60 years. This is near unprecedented, and it's been a focus of this president's efforts to make your costs more affordable in those retirement years. But for everybody who has got that monthly expense of these prescription drug prices, President Trump made that commitment, and he's following through on it. Let's get to our guest here. We welcome back to the show Dr. Mehmet Oz, Director of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Dr. Oz, thank you so much for being with us here today. There's a lot to champion with what the administration has been doing to lower prescription drug prices.
Well, the president's enthusiastic about the remarkable drop in prices for these medications. But I want to highlight that when the administration first started, this was a major theme that the president, behind closed doors, was hammering us on. And the basic argument he was making, because he's listening to folks who voted for him, is that 1 in 3 times you go to a drugstore to pick up a medication your doctor told you to get. You paid for an appointment for someone to tell you what you need, and you can't pick up the medication. And the reason for that, which is infuriating, is that we pay 3 times more on average per medication, branded products, than any other country on the planet. And the president said, no mas. We're not going to tolerate that. Just like he's gotten upset about trade inequities and the fact that NATO wasn't well balanced and they weren't paying their fair share. We were picking up the tab. He said the same thing about medications. Why are we allowing global freeloading? And so he asked us, in fact, he demanded that we go and negotiate with every one of the big pharmaceutical companies. And we did that. We knocked on their doors. And you know what? This is amazing. And because this is, again, it shows the wisdom that he has in some of these themes, because he's a negotiator. When we got to these guys, they all said, hey, listen, we knew one day that you guys would come knocking, so let's cut a deal. And we did. Huh. We cut deals with all the big companies, dropped the prices. I got what is called most favored nation drug pricing, which is what he was talking about in that clip, which means we're not going to pay more in America than you're paying in other countries for the same drugs. Even when they're made in this country, by the way, they charge more here. And that has allowed us to register the largest drop in drug prices ever this year and over the last year, because we try to report them in annual moments. And over the last year, it's the largest drop in 63 years. And back then, 63 years ago, just to give you an idea how big a deal this was, the only reason drug prices dropped that year was because for the first time, the FDA said drug companies had to prove their products worked. Because other than that, they were always increasing. So you realize what a seismic move this is.
Yeah. And I mean, such an important Main Street adaptation for a policy like this, and the efforts made with the administration and these big companies to say, hey, you're gonna do your part here. I've seen in the administration in between the two Trump terms, it seemed as though the pressure was always on the consumer, that there was always an ask on the consumer and the burden was always on the consumer. Consistently, I've seen the president, this isn't your department, but I've seen the president go to the oil companies and be like, hey, what are you doing here? You need to get in here and play ball because the American people deserve it. And for prescription prices as well, it's a non-negotiable for Americans. They've got to pay whatever they're being told to pay. And President Trump shows up and the administration shows up and says to these companies, hey, we need you to work. And you're telling me that they were like, sure, we've been waiting for this. Why Trump? Why did it take Trump?
Well, that's what they're saying. We knew eventually someone would figure it out. I'll tell you what happens. They have strong lobbies. Yeah. And they are intimidatingly strong on Capitol Hill. And so when Congress tries to do things, they know how to shut it down. The president doesn't take no for an answer. He also appreciated something really important, that if you negotiate hard with someone, they're going to have to give, but they won't give everything. So you end up with an equation that allows them, the industry, to stay creative, to stay innovative, to allow us to save lives and develop cures while at the same time getting a better value. Here's the evidence for that. Their stock market valuation of these companies, these pharmaceutical behemoths, went up, not down, went up with most favored nation drug pricing, because the industry realized that they're now in a new normal, not as profitable, but acceptably profitable. By the way, all of these prices are on TrumpRx.gov, which is a spectacular site built by Joe Gebbia, Ed Korstein. These are the guys who founded Airbnb, top-tier people President brought in. The site works beautifully as a transparency. And if you're going to buy a drug in America, you really should check the price on TrumpRx first. It's free to check it. And the price will often allow you to go to the pharmacist and say, I want a better price because whatever's available on TrumpRx.gov, I'm allowed to get access to.
Well, Dr. Oz is speaking with us right now, the director of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. I do want to, in addition to talking about this championing of these lowering prescription drug prices from the Trump administration, I do want to talk about your relentless pursuit to weed out the fraud that exists in our country. It seems like the numbers that we hear from your reports or the other people in the cabinet that are working for this, the numbers are so big and large, and it just to me is like, is this the stuff that's bubbling up to the surface? How deep have you been able to dig right now to root out the people who are taking advantage of the American taxpayer, of the Medicaid and Medicare subscribers? How far into this would you say that your fraud efforts have taken you?
Well, we're doing a root canal, if you're using a dental analogy, although I'm a heart surgeon. You know what happened? During COVID, the government was so sloppy in the way it threw money around that it taught a bunch of lowlifes, grifters, that they could take advantage of the federal government and not get caught. We have drug dealers in Philadelphia who are shifting careers into home care. In fact, that actually happened in a bus we did recently. A guy said he's getting handcuffed, and he told the cop he had to actually log out of his home care job. And the cop said, what are you talking about? I'm arresting you for dealing drugs. And the guy said, yeah, I got a side gig. And the cop said, I'm putting you behind bars. He said, if you do that, you'll have to arrest everybody in Philadelphia because we're all doing it.
Oh, my gosh.
You see this in California where half the hospices in the whole country are in one city, Los Angeles. You see it in New York State where the number one job in the whole state is being a home care attendant, which means you're basically carrying groceries upstairs for your parents. So the fraud is out of control. And it's happening in Florida, too, where you've got durable medical equipment, where you are, Missouri. However, here's the good news. If you're going to get serious about this, you've got to deal with the underlying corruption, because they don't just steal your money with fraud and corruption. They steal your trust. And so we have now gotten to the root cause of a lot of the issues. There are large multinational criminal organizations we're going after. We put moratoria nationally to shut down fraud in durable medical equipment, which is wheelchairs and canes. We've got the same moratorium in hospices, same limitations on home health care. We're doing things that stop the hemorrhaging. And then meanwhile, we're taking action to get to the criminals. That's why all the U.S. attorneys, the president goes after them and says, we want you to really get aggressive. And they have gotten aggressive, are taking major action. But the big secret, the secret sauce, is never let the money leave the building. Yeah. So my agency, which runs Medicare and Medicaid, we cover 170 million Americans. It's the largest by cash. We spend $2 trillion a year. We are not allowing money to leave this building unless we know it's legitimate. We've stopped $42 billion already in the last year from just Medicare. And to put that in context for the average listener, if we can continue this pace, we're going to double the life expectancy of the Medicare Trust Fund, which means if you're worried because you're working your tail off and you're 40 years old, you're not sure Medicare is going to be there for you in 25 years, I'm telling you it's going to be there for you and your kid, because we're going to double the life expectancy. But just taking the fraud out, not raising taxes, just being smart about how we spend the money.
Dr. Oz, this is Ryan, Annie's co-host. I always feel like you bring us such good news that it's exciting to talk to you. But has this fraud always been a problem that's just been exacerbated since COVID? Or have people gotten so bold that they're doing things that nobody's even thought were possible?
It's the latter. This is not how it was. We were a high-trust society. When Medicare and Medicaid were created especially, no one stole from the poor. Who does that? Americans don't allow criminals to take money from the most vulnerable. But we've gotten acclimated, normalized to the fraud and the corruption that underlies it. And I'm going to share something else with you that's really important, because it really got bad after Obamacare. We have a system for paying for people's health care that is based on everyone being aligned. Like the government from the president down to the governor to the state senators, they all have to think that this is the right way to do it. What happened within modern ways, and this all got fixed with the one big beautiful bill, is that states realized that they could create jobs by put them on the federal dollar, on the federal taxpayer, and deal with their own internal issues. And that wasn't aligned. That wasn't fair. I'll give you a concrete example. Why is it that the most common job by a factor of 2 in California and New York is home care? That's, again, carrying the groceries upstairs for your parents. Why are we even paying for that? Here's why. The governors in those states say, hey, you know what? Fraud and corruption, that's not a flaw. That's a feature. I can take these people who would be unemployed, put them on the Medicaid program, and the government has to pay me back most of the money. And so I can now create hundreds of thousands of jobs, but it gets worse because now the unions have gotten to these guys and they're starting to collect union dues, and they don't give the workers a choice. So now the federal taxpayer is paying union dues in New York and California. And what does that do? That feeds right to their political action committee. So it's political patronage. It's weaponization of fraud, which is why we keep coming back to the same issue. It's not just about stealing money. They're stealing your health. They're stealing your lives. They're stealing your trust. We have to stop it now.
Oh, well, Dr. Oz, we are grateful for your time with us today. Please keep fighting the good fight and come back to us and update us as you continue to achieve these successes, both with the rooting out fraud and also the championing of the realization that these drug prices are coming down. The best numbers in 60 years. It's commendable. We need to keep going, and I know that the administration is dedicated to it. Dr. Oz, we're very grateful for your time today.
God bless you, Annie. Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
as well. Bye-bye. Dr. Oz, he is the director of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. You can follow him on X.